Okay, this is an instructional video on how to assemble the 26C feeder. Obviously, the first thing you need to do is get the bodies painted, install the elastomeric bushings for the feet. We primer the inside of the electrical assembly. The electrical assemblies are not painted at this point. They are talking about changing. These are stainless steel plates, possibly not painting them, but if they are going to be painted, they will be painted prior to installing the strain relief bushing. The strain relief bushing is installed with the cord flush to the inside. Your leads, we take them, we put a little bend to them, and then cut them approximately flush with the top. Okay, so then what we're going to do next on these leads is we need to epoxy this strain relief bushing in with the Loctite epoxy that is right here. We use an epoxy patch kit. I guess any epoxy will work. It just needs to be sealed and held in properly. So what we'll do next is we're going to take the leads. Okay. Now this is a black lead and a white lead. This lead is painted with epoxy, but you can see it is a black lead. So you want to go with your black to black and your white to white. This is very important to keep all of the electrical assemblies in phase with each other in case you have a 2 or 3 or 4 unit system. So they all must be installed per the instructions, black lead, white lead. Now your black lead, if you look at your drawing for your 26C, and let's pause it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is the coil assembly drawing. Your start lead will be connected to the white insulation and your finish lead to the black insulation. The coils must be set in with the lead wires down. Pause.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've taken our leads, we've twisted the leads together, and we're going to install this crimp connector on each of the coil leads. We also want to install this ring connector for the ground on the green wire lead. You take it, you put it on, and crimp it tightly. Now each of these leads is going to be covered with a sleeve. Prior to installing the sleeve, we'll put RTV in there. We're going to put the sleeve on, and then a minimum of 3 wraps of tape must be, 3M tape must be installed. Pause. So we'll put the RTV just on the very end. Yeah, that was a little too much RTV, so we wiped it off. And what you want to do, install this tube down over the top. Pause it. So we're going to add the epoxy. This should have been done prior to my putting the crimps on. But what we want to do is we want to put this epoxy all the way in. There's a ridge in there. And what it does 2 things. It keeps the strain relief pushing in, and it also seals it and makes it watertight. No, you should do it prior to the installing the crimps. Makes it a whole lot easier.
Pause it. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to put the 3 wraps of tape. We're going to put about half on the sleeve that you just installed and the other half on the wire. 1, 2, 3 wraps of tape on both sides.
Go ahead.
Now we're going to put the brass screw with the lock washer in the ground on the ground wire. Tighten it up. Okay, now the coil is ready to be installed. We're going to let the epoxy set up and start assembling the feeder body and drive itself. Okay, so what we have here is we have our armature. These are the 2 washers that must go on top of the armature. We'll glue them on later. This is your diaphragm. The diaphragm goes over the armature and the washers. This is a spring stack. This is your front spring stack, which is only 1/13 ply spring. You take your bolts, your lock washer, your spring clamp, 1 spacer, on each side, install another spacer. There must be at least 1 spacer, only between each spring. This here is your rear spring stack, which is called out on the drawing. Spring combination is listed on the drawing for 50 and 60 cycle units. We're building a 26C 115 volt 60 cycle unit, and the rear has 111, 19, 15, 14. This is for stock units. These will be the units that will be being shipped to the US and put in our stock. So it's just a standard spring combination. It does not, if you're building a C feeder or any feeder and you're going to put a tray on it, then you tune it to a spring combination that will be determined by you for each specific tray weight. There's no given, we have no really given spring combinations for each weight tray. It's all in tuning. Pause. Okay, so what I've done is I've applied a bead of RTV silicone around the outside and a circle around each drilled and tapped hole. These holes are filled with Never-Seez. We've used Never-Seez compound on most of our threaded holes. All of the spring bolt holes, the armatures also get Never-Seez in it. This is your armature adapter and this is your diaphragm. So what we're going to do next is put the diaphragm on, making sure that it goes around those washers. You don't want the rubber overlapping the washers. You put your armature adapter on, which has the high collar washer installed and your 2 socket head cap screws. And you'll notice there is Never-Seez in all these holes. Pause. So now we're going to tighten these down. No torque value. There is no torque value on them, you just want them good and tight. So the next thing you want to do is take your clamp, your diaphragm clamp, put it over top. Make sure your poles are clean prior to installation. What we want to do is we're going to just set it in there. I leave it on the bottom, push it in, want to take your screws, line your screws up. Pause it. Okay, so what we're doing is we're cleaning the paint out of the holes. There was so much paint in the holes we could not get the screws started. So we're retapping the holes. So you can either thread bolts in the holes prior to painting, or you're going to have to retap the holes. Feet of RTV just on the inside here for wash down.
Okay.
So you hold your armature, install your screws and the diaphragm clamps. So I'm going to start the screws. And there we go. You just want to snug them, and then I usually finish them by hand. Go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Wipe the excess off. And you can either put the silicone on the back of the diaphragm or the way I did it on the body casting, as long as you make a good watertight seal. Again, you notice we do have the never sees in the holes. Pause. Now we're gonna take our front spring as an assembly, and we like to see the numbers up. Stop.
Okay.
Okay, so what we've done is I've installed the springs on the armature adapter with the diaphragm clamp to make it a little easier to assemble it. So what we do is we want to take it as an assembly. These are just tight, they're not torqued yet. We'll put it in here, push it off your body casting, pull it in, and what you want to do is make sure you have your spacer in position and your springs, and we'll start the spring bolts. Do not over tighten these bolts. There's a torque value of 20 foot-pounds, and we will get to that later. Now we're going to install the screws in the diaphragm clamp, and we'll tighten them down. Pause.